when you are selling things in bits and pieces, the ability for you to gain more money is high. We currently did this for our property. We took up an A-class student housing and we repositioned 50% of it because of the demand. The next exit strategy is 1031 exchange and condo conversion. So I'm going to start with the 1031 exchange. In this one, you are selling a property and reinvesting it with a like-kind property. So you can decide that I want to sell my single family property and buy maybe a 4+ or a 5 units. That is a 1031 exchange strategy. Or I want to sell my 20 units and get a 50 unit at an exchange for that. The advantage of this is that you are deferring capital, an opportunity for you to upgrade to a higher valuable property. Definitely, you're not selling a low property to buy a lower one. The rules of 1031 exchange, I might be wrong, but I think you can exchange it with equal or greater value, maybe double. I can't remember the exact thing. You can go verify that. But the idea is that you're exchanging it for higher value property. Then consideration, things you need to consider is street, timeline, and rules. I was a victim of this in 2023. We didn't meet the timeline because we don't also want to buy a property that, because we're in a rush, the property does not make sense or the property is not cash flowing and all that. So we did a 1031 exchange. We sold a property in November last year and we had 45 days to identify a property. Before we sold it, we've been looking for a property we didn't see because of the way the economy was like last year. So it was difficult to get a deal that would pencil out. We got to 45 days and we couldn't meet up and all that. So that was how we fell off our 1031 exchange. So these are things you want to avoid. But the reason why it's okay for us is because we have K1s that can write it off. So no problem. But if you're in that situation that you are doing a 1031 exchange, you need to pay attention to the timelines. It's very important, and you need to have a suitable replacement. You don't just want to buy any property because of the street timeline. You don't want to do that. Another exit strategy that you can navigate is condo conversion. So this is how this works. For example, let's say you have 100 units. You can decide that you bought the property as one building, maybe a one portfolio and all that. You can decide I want to exit by selling them one by one. I don't want to sell them as a whole portfolio. That is another exit strategy you can take up. So you can decide to sell those things as condos individually. And not just that, you can also decide to create an HOA on it and still manage the property even after you sold it to individuals. So this is an exit strategy. I tried to do it 3 years ago, but I didn't go ahead with it because the seller did not agree to my price and all that. But this is an option that you can take in exiting. So it's not just refinancing and sales. I think we've limited our minds to that, but there are other options that we can follow. The advantages of this is that potentially higher total sales price. Definitely when you are selling things in bits and pieces, the ability for you to gain more money is high. You're selling each of them 10 units for 2,000. That means you might even get double for the amount. The ability to have an increased higher total sales price is high. You can diversify your buyer's pool. That means you can have maybe an investor buy one. You can have a family people buy one. You can have students buy one. You can have investors from different states buy. So different buyer pool, you can have them all buying your property. Things you need to consider, very, very important on this one: legal and regulatory hurdles. This is the number one issues, because when you're buying a multifamily of this kind and you're thinking of converting it to condo, there are regulations in that state and in that county that you need to follow. Sometimes you might not be able to do it, so you need to consult with the local and find out if you can actually make this a condominium and what are the rules and hurdles you need to follow. It's not a straightforward process, but I know that there's some legal things around it. Then the market demand for condos, you need to know your market. An apartment that is close to the beach or close to vacation areas where people would like to vacate, this might be a very good exit strategy for you, because some people just want a second home close to where they do their summer breaks or vacations and all that. So this might be a good exit strategy at that point for you to consider doing. But if you're in a busy place, a different type of area, this might not be a good strategy because not everybody likes condo, and that is mainly because of the HOA fee. I don't like condo because I get to pay HOA. I don't want to pay anybody extra more. It's like I'm paying another rent rent or another mortgage and all that. So these are things you need to consider. There's significant upfront costs. There's some monies that you use to do this, convert it into condominium. So you need to take that into cognizance that you'll be spending some money down the line and all that. So when do you consider whether to sell, refinance, or do a 1031 exchange? For you to sell, when to consider selling is when the market condition is favorable. This might not be a good time for you to sell. This is my own opinion. So it's up to you if you want to sell now. Also, if you need liquidity, you want money maybe to do other things, this might be a good time for you to sell and become liquid and use that money, divert that money to do what you need to do. Then when a property is underperforming, is not doing what it's supposed to do, might just be the right time for you to sell. Or the property has maximized its potential. That is, you've built a lot of equity, you've done everything you need to do on it, you've executed your business plan, there's nothing else to be done, or whatever needs to be done is very minute, might not give you a significant return, that might be a good time for you to sell. On the deal we are currently on, the seller has refinanced from this deal 3 times and is now selling because he has maximized everything he needs to maximize at that time based on what he bought it for. So it's the right time for him to sell. So that is what you should consider when you're selling. For refinancing, when the interest rate is low, that should be a good time for you to consider refinancing. Like right now, most of us, our interest rate is around 5, 6, 7. Maybe in a year or two, the interest rate might fall to maybe 5. That might be a time for you to say, okay, I've improved the value of this property. I think it's time for me to sell so that I can reduce my interest and make the property cash flow better and all that. And when you notice that you've increased the NOI, so for example, you bought the property, maybe you got there and the rent was, let's say, 500, and within the space of 2 years, you've improved the rent to $200. That means you've added value on each unit of 1,500. That is significant improvement. And if you were also able to work on your expenses, that means your NOI should be great. So for example, your NOI was 500 and you improved the property and the NOI is now 3 million or 2.5 million. In short, you've really improved on that property, and that might be a good time for you to assess the equity on that property. So this thing for refinancing is going to be determined on the value you've put on that property, how much equity you've built in on it. And if you also want to improve your cash flow, that is where the interest rate comes in. So if you refinance to a better rate, your cash flow might be better. Or let's assume you have a primary loan and a secondary loan, and let's say your primary loan is 4% or 3% and your secondary loan is 7%. You might want to consolidate the both of them to one single interest rate to get a better terms. So this might be one of the reasons why you want to refinance. Then when do you consider a 1031 exchange? Is if you want to defer taxes. Let's say the property has accumulated a lot, like this Pops and Mars. Pops and Mars, most of them bought their properties many years ago. They've had these properties for 20 years. They've had this property for 10 years. Some people 30 years. I've seen properties that people have owned for 30 years. They were really operating those properties very well. You can imagine the amount of equity that they've accrued on it. Just selling it might not be a good thing for them to do. So they might just want to do a 1031 exchange to defer taxes and also maybe to diversify their portfolio. Maybe they had a 20 unit, like I mentioned, they might want to buy 100 units this time around. So that might be the reason why you want to do a 1031 exchange. Then upgrade your real estate holdings. It's possible you had C class and you want to upgrade it to A class. So this might be one of the things you should consider. Some other exit strategies that some of us don't even know about that we can take advantage of. I know some of us are surprised. Oh, I thought it was only refinancing and selling. No, there are other ways you can get out of a deal. So you can decide to buy out your partnership. I like it and I don't like it. I like it when, let's say, your partners are done with the deal and you know that the deal has potential. You can decide to buy them out and own it yourself and all that. So that might be when you want to consider this. So let's dive into this a little bit more. When do you consider partnership buyout? Selling your share of the property to a partner or bringing new partners to buy out existing shares. The advantage of this is I provides liquidity without a full property sale. That means I can sell my shares to whoever without them selling the property. So they'll take my share in exchange of money. So I'll get the money and they'll take my share. So that's a way I can exit if they don't want to sell the property. Then potential for strategic partnership. Peradventure, you have issues with your partners. Let's say you and your partners are in loggerhead. These things happen. I've seen properties that I've tried to buy from two partners or three partners that are fighting amongst themselves. They can't even stand each other. They want to get out of it. They just want to sell. If one of the partner is liquid, has a lot of money, he can decide that I don't want to sell this property. Rather, I will pay you guys to go out rather than selling it. But the reason why you find some people not doing that is because it can be very expensive. And again, the value might be very confusing in the sense that the value of this property might be 2 million, but because it's between us, I might say it's 1.5. And that might cause some litigation issues that before you know, we'll find ourselves in court. So this can be kind of rough if not properly managed, but it's a way for you to exit when you have very demanding partners or partners that want to go out, or you're already tired of it, you want to exit. You can go this route of they should buy you out or you buy them out, one of them and all that, but it's expensive. So you know, consideration, valuation of shares. Valuation of shares is a very important factor. Alignment of interest with new partners. So the new people you're bringing on board to exchange the old ones out, they must align with your goal. If not, you keep going around the same circle and you end up buying them out again as well. Legal implications. So I told you, you guys might find yourself in court if you guys are not matured enough to handle this properly. So it's an exit strategy, but it's not for everyone. Another very interesting one that I love very much, and we are seeing it happening on a regular, is redevelopment or repositioning. We are seeing a lot of hotels becoming multi-families. We are seeing adult living homes. I've forgotten the name. Senior living homes. We are seeing them they are converting them to multifamily and all that. Things like this happen. So you can decide to exit in a different way by repositioning a property. Let's say the property was initially an hotel, and maybe the hotel is not performing well. You decide to, okay, I want to reposition this to multifamily. We are seeing that happening a lot. Many people are converting hotels to multifamily, and that is how they're exiting from that and all that. So advantage of this is potential higher rent and property value. When you convert an hotel to a multifamily and you're pretty well, the probability that it becomes better is high. Modernizing the assets, because you have to pump in some money to make it look more modern, is going to make the property look a lot better than the current stage. We currently did this for our property. We took up an A-class student housing and we repositioned 50% of it because of the demand. We practically do repositioning, especially when the demand of the area is changing. So I'm going to talk more about it in the next slide. But things you need to consider is capital expenditure requirement. It's expensive. So if you're converting an hotel to a multifamily, remember you're going to introduce kitchen. You're going to make it very comfortable, like the way a residential will look like and all that. So that might cost you a lot. We're also seeing people converting office buildings to residential. I do not encourage that, but people are doing it. So it's going to cost you a lot of money. Sometimes even the value of the property, it might not even make sense. So those are things you need to consider. If I'm repositioning it, is it better if I sell it and that's it, or it will give me more value if I do that? Then project management, who is going to be managing the project for you? You need to take that into consideration. If not, this project can linger for maybe many years and you end up spending so much money. Market demand of new positioning. So if you are converting the hotel to residential, why are you doing it? Is it because the demography has changed? You have more residential people than visitors, than tourists in that area. Why are you doing it? Why reposition? What's the opportunity? People are repositioning office spaces right now because of the market, the economic condition. People are working from home, and we are seeing that offices are now empty and people are looking for places to stay. So that might be a reason. Okay, people are looking for houses to stay rather than working in an office. I might decide to reposition at that point. So these are things you need to consider before you take up such decision.